we are coming back to the text after a 1 week break. But if you are not in touch with the subject, it looks as if it's been eons. I don't know, when did you last open the text and exercise your intellect? So the first part which we had covered, the Guru goes about immaculately conceptualizing what Brahman is. He said, Tadeva Brahmatvam vidhi nedam yadidam upasate. Tadeva Brahmatvam vidhi. That alone is God, not what you people worship here. He didn't that message right into us. The Deva, that alone is Brahman. Now, the second part 2, has got only 5 mantras. Very short. So the first mantra, can we have the translation, Ma? The verse in the translation. Yadi manyase suvedeti dabhramevapi nunam tvam vethat brahmano rupam. Yadasya tvam yadasya deveshvathanumimam samevate manye viditam. If you think I know well enough, you know perhaps very little indeed. The Guru is clarifying something here to the students. If you think I know well, you know very little indeed. The form of Brahman you have known is that of the gods. Deveshu Yadasya Deveshu. It is of the gods. Therefore, now that which is to be known, I think is still to be ascertained by you. So, having heard the exhaustive description of Brahman by the Guru, we want to make it mission possible, and you want to say mission impossible, Saras. Is it impossible or possible? What is it behind you?
It's Hari Om Guruji. It's just the virtual background I used for last night's meeting.
Now, can you please? I want to see the complete. What is the backdrop you have? Is it mission impossible or mission? How can you put mission impossible? You must say mission possible, no? All I'm trying to tell you is mission possible, and you are saying mission impossible. I didn't expect this from you, Saras. Never mind. Please change it to mission possible and put it again. Okay, just kidding. So, having heard the Guru, perhaps the student has shown certain signs of ecstasy, certain signs of joy or satisfaction, perhaps indicating that he has captured Brahman, he has captured that experience of realization. So the Guru is very concerned, out of concern, he first and foremost says he is rejecting that experience. What you know is very little indeed. If you think you know it, what you know is very little. What you have experienced is that of the gods. Gods are referred to as the illuminators. That which illumines is Brahman. The gods are the illuminators. They are illumined by Brahman. It's like the electricity illumining the gadgets. Brahman is like electricity. And the various gadgets that are operating are the various gods going about doing their various functions in the world. So he's only saying you have experienced a brilliant expression of Brahman. What you've experienced is not Brahman. What you experience is the gods. Many people mistake the experience of the gods to be the God. There is a difference between the plural Devaha and the singular Deva. This is what the Guru feels. The Guru feels that you have not understood Brahman. You only experienced the gods, which is the relative experience. Now, how do you experience the gods? The gods are experienced. Gods refer to the experience of ecstasy, an ecstatic feeling, an experience when there is a confluence, where there is a marriage between a refined head and a pure heart. When there is a confluence, when there is a merger, when there is a happy marriage between the most refined intellect, means the most subtlest of intellects, and the most purest of minds or the hearts. So when there is this head of the highest order and the heart of the purest order, when the head and heart come together and merge, there is this experience of ecstasy, which is not even trance. Trance is different to ecstasy, please. I think last when we spoke, I think we clarified, Amitama, what is trance? Trance is different to ecstasy. People mistake trance to be a spiritual quality, which is not in the context. The Guru is only trying to caution the student that it is perhaps only a very ecstatic feeling, which is very close to that experience of Brahman. It is not that experience of Brahman. Now, when do you, I repeat, when do you experience that ecstasy? Ecstasy is when the purest of heart and the subtlest of head come and unite. There is a merger, even in a mundane sense. Don't we say the best action is where the head and heart know each other? You must inject emotion where there is a head overwhelming. The intellect, the head must come and interfere wherever there's too much of emotional drama going on. The intellect comes and stabilizes that balance between the head and the heart, even in our day-to-day activities. Now, take it to that spiritual realm, you get to the zenith of terrestrial experience. You get to the very zenith of terrestrial experience, which is known as ecstasy. Now, ecstasy is different to trance. Now, if I can ask, Harish, were you there last when we had the session, Harish, a fortnight ago?
Yes, Guruji. Hariom, Guruji.
Hariom, sir. So, do you recall how did we describe trance as?
Guruji, I don't recall it off the top of my head. No, I'm sorry, Guruji. I don't recall it on the top of my head.
No, you don't have to be sorry. I just wanted to just check whether does it strike a chord with you. No issues. Arunama, do you know what we spoke of trance?
Hari Om
Before,
Guruji.
Harioma, before you say anything, I must say you look very divinely today.
Thank you, Guruji.
There's a divinely glow.
Thank you, Guruji.
Yes, ma. So what is trance, ma?
If I can recall, I remember, I mean, this is what I can relate to. Trance is more when it is at the emotional level. So it is a mind-controlled experience. So that's a basic thing that I remember. So it is not an intellectual or a spiritual experience.
Correct, correct. Trance is when the mind gets overwhelmed with emotion. In other sense, it is known as an emotional indulgence in the spiritual field. You may indulge in any worldly transactions, isn't it? You may indulge in the sensual pleasures of the world. You may give a license to the mind to run behind the worldly cravings and sensual pleasures. But when the same mind runs wild in the spiritual world, it develops what is known as trance. Trance is to get lost into some spiritual realm without any governance of your intellect. So you have no control over your mind or your thoughts. So you're given a license to the mind to run wild. And when the mind goes ungoverned in the spiritual field, you get into an experience of trance. And trance is a state where you're lost in the object of your perception. You could be looking at a sunrise, you could be looking at a flower, you could be looking at something in nature, you can be looking at a deity, you can be sitting in a place of worship, you could be sitting in a meditation hall, you could be in a puja, you could be in a ritual, you could be wherever. But when your mind gets lost in something without any control of your own self with the intellect, you get up, you develop trance. And trance is spiritual weakness. It is not to be compared to a spiritual elevated state. All right. So one is this. Kamalji, are you able to follow the points, sir?
Yes. It was first time I was hearing about trance, so I did not know about it, but I understand what you're saying.
Great, great. So just that little difference from trance to ecstasy. So that ecstasy is a spiritual experience when there is a confluence of the head and the heart. So even at the relative level, your actions are perfect when there is a merger of the head and the heart. We must understand this principle. Even relative level, when we are operating, there has to be a marriage between the head and the heart. That's when your actions are perfect. There is no conflict between the inner personality, which is invariably the case, where there is no participation of either in an experience. There's always a conflict, and that doesn't give you a certain comfortable feeling, isn't it? You don't feel good about it when you do something because there's no wholeheartedness. I don't know of any mundane word to describe that, but you don't feel comfortable with it. But when you do with your head and heart, you are very, very happy, you're very excited, you're very passionate. You're not interested in the outcome of it, you just enjoy doing it. It's like just playing a sport for the sake of playing, man. You don't have to play a sport to prove a point to anyone. You want to play because you enjoy it. It is a ecstatic feeling. You really get excited about it, isn't it? You don't want to do anything beyond just being in that sport. Similarly, when you apply that head and heart, not for the worldly activities, but you have refined your emotions so pure, you've made your feelings so subtle, from gross to subtle, from ignoble to noble. So you have got the purest of hearts, the kindest of hearts. There's no blemish in your heart. There's no selfishness in your heart. The head can appreciate the most transcendental of thoughts. Means you've got a very sharp, subtle intellect. So I'm trying to take the perfection of the equipments to a point of fault. I've taken to the highest. So when these two meet, when the purest of heart and the subtlest of head meet, you get ecstasy. This ecstasy is mistaken to mean realization. So the guru in the verse is trying to caution the student, what you are having is just an experience of the gods. It is not realization. If you think you know well, you know perhaps very little indeed. So there are three things we are saying. What are the three things we are saying here? Balaji, can we just sum up here, please? The three experiences we are talking about.
Experience. Can't think of now. You mean you're talking about the known and unknown?
Sir, just little I said in the class so far. I was talking of three experiences.
The trance and ecstasy, you know.
Yes. So what is trance? The experience of trance is
It's more emotional.
when, just try to, Harish, if you just capture it, please, for us. Trance is emotional indulgence, isn't it?
It is.
When your mind participates in a spiritual activity by itself, it's emotional indulgence, right?
Right.
Ecstasy is what, Balaji?
And, the purest of the heart and the purest of the mind both meet. Then
What is the
there's
heart
ecstasy.
and the heart and the mind the same thing, isn't it? The purest of the heart and the subtlest of the head.
Okay.
The intellect is very subtle. The mind is very pure. So when the subtle, you can use either way, whatever adjectives you're going to describe it. When the head and heart, purest of them unite, there you get ecstasy. Am I right?
Yeah.
And ecstasy is described as zenith of spiritual experience in the terrestrial realm. You have a greatest of experience, but still terrestrial.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable in describing that way?
Yeah, but again, yeah, it's very, yeah, that's what you mentioned earlier. But I think.
But does it make sense? Does it make sense with you?
Yes, make sense. Makes sense. Yeah.
So we are not saying anything wrong with ecstasy. We are saying everything is entirely wrong with trance. Are we right, sir?
Indeed.
Indeed, right.
Yeah.
Now, then what's the third experience the guru is talking about? In fact, the gurus only talk about this, which is
beyond known and unknown. I mean, it's not that what you
in simple terms, Balaji, in simple terms, the experience of self-realization.
Yeah.
And when do you experience self-realization? When you transcend the emotion and intellection, when you transcend the head and the heart.
Yeah.
So these are the three experiences in the context of the verse we are speaking. Are we right, sir?
Yes.
Trance is an experience of mental indulgence in the spiritual field. Ecstasy is when your head and heart blend to give you the zenith of terrestrial experience. Self-realization is the highest of experience when you transcend the mind and intellect. I'm describing the three experiences using the mind and intellect. That's the commonality I'm following in describing three experiences. So you understand what is lacking in which. So rather than going into other descriptive terms of saying it's beyond the known and the unknown, you're right. But just to describe it with reference to the known thing, which is the mind and intellect, you've got to bring in this distinct clarity.
Yes.
Are you able to follow
Yeah.
Balaji?
Yes, yes.
If you don't follow, I'll say Balaji Ji. Then you will follow.
I'm thinking along your way. Yeah, right.
Because that's what the verse is saying. The Guru clarifies
Exactly.
what you experience is not Brahman, you're only experiencing the gods. And many people also ignorantly attribute trance to be godly, but it is not godly, it's a weakness. So it is very easy for non-spiritual people to experience that trance. They're not really elevated, but they just have such a weak mind. They just get carried away with something and they get into a trance. That's the point I'm making. It is not getting emotionally swept away. It is not spiritual experience. All right?
Yes.
You're following? Perfect, Balaji. Right. Yes, Amitama. I was looking for when are you going to raise your hand? Yes, please.
Hari Om Guruji.
Yes,
the question I had was about the definition that we had for ecstasy. So ecstasy is that marriage, that perfect marriage of a refined intellect and the purest of heart. Okay, and
perfect. Yes.
that's what gives you ecstasy. Is it the same as Ananda, bliss, or is bliss another level higher or something? Because bliss is a very, Ananda, yeah.
See, Ananda is often used to be that enlightenment. The real Anandam, the real bliss is in the unfoldment of the self, is in the revealing of yourself, is upon realization. You get it? So Ananda or bliss is the transcendental experience. So
it would be the third definition, beyond
yes,
the heart and the head. Okay.
Absolutely. Okay. You see, it has to be beyond the heart and the head, because if we go back into the previous section of the text, did we not learn which mantra was it? The sixth mantra. Did we not say that? Yan manasana manute yena hurmano matam tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yadidam upasate. Gayatri Ma, part 1, mantra 6, please. Just trying to reiterate the understanding. Yan manasana manute yena hurmano matam tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam yadidam upasate. Now here he says, Brahman, look at the title. Brahman is the illuminator of mind. So that which cannot be conceived by the mind, mind cannot capture God. God is not an object of emotion which can be captured by the mind, that by which the mind conceives. So Brahman is not which can be experienced in the first two categories. It can't be captured in trance. It can't be captured through ecstasy. It is only when you transcend the mind and intellect, that's when you capture Brahman. The Guru has already established it. It is not an object of perception, not an object of emotion, not an object of thought. That's it. Your equipments are beyond your, it cannot, your equipments cannot capture it. Okay. All right. Yes, Kamalji. See, I have this difficulty, Kamalji. You know, the hand which you have raised and the backdrop color of your wall merges with me. I don't see it. I just got a prompt by someone saying that you want, I would have completely missed it even today. I must
No
say
problem.
that.
No problem.
You know, no issues.
Uh,
Perfect. Yes, Chi.
I just wanted to clarify about ecstasy.
Ecstasy.
The ecstasy is where you mentioned merging of head and heart. And also in the definition of in yoga, in Gita, it mentions that heart and head or intellect is harmonized or together. It's called yoga.
Yes.
So are we talking the same thing here, or is it different? Because their yoga is referred to the dhira, the wise person who is the realized kind of realized. So is that one level slightly higher than ecstasy, or is it still the same thing?
A very good question. I would say, in fact, in the context, I think both should mean the same, because when the mind and intellect both engage, they only can take you to a certain level. The mind and intellect cannot give you the experience of the self. Sir. That's the very limitation of the finite equipments. We must principally understand what these equipments can give you. These vehicles can take you only to a certain experience, to a certain point. Like you may take, your vehicle can take you from your doorstep to the doorstep of the temple. Thereafter, you have to disembark and you have to take a walk up the hill to have the darshan. You can't say, oh, I'll take my vehicle right up to the sanctum sanctorum. No, it's not possible. So there is a certain limitation what your mind and intellect can give you. So the mind and intellect gives you only, takes you to a certain level. So even in the Gita, the different language of yoga, the real union happens when you go beyond the limitations of the mind and intellect. It is not that the mind and intellect gives you the union with the self. No. So one is the journey, other is the experience itself. Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Most welcome. Yes, Balaji ji. I'll only call you G, not even Balaji.
Okay, so I mean,
Yes,
yes, sir. Well, I think on just want to recap at the ecstasy and trance is both at mind level, which is still the object, right? It is, I think, it's still the means, it's not the end. But I think that what Master trying to say is beyond the means. It's still object. I think the Master talking about the subject. So whatever the trance or ecstasy, they think it is subject, but it's not. It's still object.
yes.
I mean,
But you're very right. Only clarification to that is the Master is not talking of trance here.
Okay.
Because that is not a spiritual state. Ecstasy is a certain spiritual state. It comes through a lot of sadhana.
still object, yeah.
No, very true. It is very much it's very much an objective, but the ultimate sense it is a subjective becoming, you know, the very ultimate. But even to gain that ecstatic feeling, that spiritual arousal in you, that spiritual thoughts, it resonates so well. You are so much in union with everything that's happening around you. You're not cursing anything. You're not bothered by the world. You're risen above the dualities. You don't see the a plurality. You only see God everywhere. It's a very ecstatic feeling, a very divine feeling. Even if I were to show you a leper's wound, you will see divinity in it. You see everywhere divinity. You know, it's such a pure feeling. It can easily be mistaken to realization. That is what the student is being cautioned, because the student has shown that glow of spiritual experience. So the master is just trying to ensure, I don't think it is realization, my dear. It may be just a mere ecstasy of experiencing the gods. So the text is not talking of trance. Many texts don't even talk of trance because it's not worthy of talking. It's all, it's not worth it. In a sense, it's something they dismiss it. Okay. I'm only trying to bring it so that we understand the difference, so that we are clear in the understanding. Okay.
Right, sir. Thanks.
Right. Looks like Harish is still. Harish, you are okay, or you are
No, Guruji,
confused with the
Guruji,
context?
No, I'm much more clear now, Guruji. Much more clear.
You're clear? Okay. Right.
Much more clear. Thank you.
Perfect. Reddy Garu, all good?
Yes, Guruji.
You follow, right?
Yes, yes.
Perfect, perfect. Sudhakar Garu, all okay? All okay?
Answer a simple question. I'm sorry, I want to ask a very small question, simple question.
Yes, please.
What is the difference between the feelings of the trance and the ecstasy? I mean, say the pleasure derived out of trance, and what is the difference between the pleasure derived out of ecstasy? And how do we differentiate between the trance and the ecstasy? And see, there are so many examples of trance we see, and people coming into it. It is a type of hypnotism, or it is a type of madness. Trance means.
I'm glad you said it. I'm only repeating your words. Trance is self-hypnotic madness. So you just get into a hypnotic state where you're brainwashing yourself, you know. In fact, you are a slave of a particular experience. You're not a master. You don't have a control over your personality when it is trance. But trance, how do you differentiate between the experiences of trance and ecstasy? That's the question.
Yes.
Okay. In fact, a simple question, it sounds simple, but a very pertinent question. I'm glad you asked. How do you differentiate? Let me ask somebody who can perhaps throw some light on it. Setuji, any idea? Amitama, I'll come to you just a minute, ma. Any idea you can differentiate between the experience? Because from a third person's perspective, both may look alike. But are there any distinct natures of experiences of ecstasy vis-a-vis trance? Yes, sir.
Trance, you don't have control over you. Mind controls you. There is no governance of mind. Whereas in ecstasy, intellect, there is a perfect marriage of intellect and mind. So there is the difference is here mind is indulging, mind is overwhelming, overpowering. Here mind is in perfect harmony. There is perfect harmony between head and heart. So both you can say in a relative level, this is ananda. This is, we can call it bliss, ecstasy. Just to differentiate between that and this.
Then what is trance? Is it not?
It is.
What is it that a person is experiencing in trance? Is he not experiencing a certain joy?
It is a joy, but not bliss. That is, you can say, that is pleasure. This is happiness. Just to differentiate. That is fleeting.
Oh, that's fleeting. Okay. Yeah, that's one of the. I would take that point in what you have said. Apart from reiterating that it's the mind predominating vis-a-vis the head.
Guruji, I just talked to a couple of people whom I know well. They are childhood friends. He does this in every Jatra, Mahankali Jatra. He has confessed he fakes it. He is from that family. They have been this thing, but he says he does it every year. So,
all right, okay. No pun intended to any quarter there, but appreciate that. Yes, Sudhakarji, you wanted to comment something, please?
Actually, I was about to tell the same thing as Mr. Setu has told. When you told about a trance, I was able to remember, in the childhood days when we go to Mahankali Jatra, the lady, she goes on dancing and that is, and God has come onto her body, and she tells, and we used to feel that is ecstasy or something like that. And
yeah, it is right. They are not faking it. Now, Setuji said they fake it, but people who get into trance, they are not faking it. They are not hypocrites. Let's not go about branding them as hypocrites. They are not faking it. They genuinely experience it, and they experience what is known as mind over matter. So they go to an extent where they do unbelievable feats where they go beyond the body consciousness. In Malaysia, we all have seen, so at a scale perhaps it just baffles someone, is where they do taipusam, the time where you are so overwhelmed. I'm talking because I've experienced it, seeing all what happens there, and those moments, something similar to what you're saying of the Mahankali Jatara, where it's so overwhelming of emotion, and body, they pierce their bodies, they pierce their tongue, they pull chariots with hooks onto their skin and all sorts of things. They're walking on fire, they do all unbelievable acts. So they don't feel, because it is mind over matter. They are not being hypocritical. They are people who may be hypocrites, that apart. But one who genuinely feels trance, he goes beyond their body consciousness, and he loses that awareness, which is mistook to be a spiritual experience. That is where we are being cautioned. Okay, right. Yes, I think Amitama wanted to comment. Yes, ma, please. And then we'll go to GBK Rao Garu.
So I was just going to share a perspective of from a physical point of view, from an observer point of view, the difference between trance and ecstasy. Trance being a boisterous physical display of emotional indulgence. So it's very, it's like a fun fair, of a public demonstration. I'm just talking about it from a physical perspective. Versus on the other hand, one of ecstasy being almost invisible. You don't see that person. There's a lot of quiet, a lot of peace, a lot of silence. That person is almost absent. Versus in a trance, he is all over the place. Just wanted to, just wanted to check if that would be a right conclusion to make.
Madam, you hit the bullseye. You got it. If there's a way to describe it, yes, it is boisterous, it is loud. You not that you're intending it that way, it just happens that way. As I've said, you are very genuine to yourself. It's just expressing something. But a person, like, they say a person who is, what is the difference between a person who is knowledgeable and vis-a-vis who's wise? Like even Kamalji took reference in the Gita, we said, a yogi or yoga is union with the head and the heart. See, even from a simple perspective of knowledge and wisdom, where there's knowledge, you prattle. Wisdom is you are humble. You don't publicize your knowing, isn't it? A wise man speaks very few words. So the most who is talking in the class is me. So there you go. So those who don't speak are very wise. So don't therefore conclude that way. I'm only trying to tell, don't conclude, don't stop this, don't take part of that sentence, take the entire sentence and then fit into the context. So even at the, so when you bring in the heart as well, you become very mature, you're so grounded, you're rock seated, as they say, Kutastha, Sanskrit word, they say you're very well established, nothing in the world disturbs you, you have a charm. It is substantial experience, Sudhakar Garu. It is not temporal, it's not at that moment. There's long lasting experience because you have put in a lot of sadhana. It's a phenomenal journey even to experience ecstasy. But we are only told not to mistake it to realization, but it comes through a lot of tapas. So just to, if that word helps you understand, you have to do a lot of tapas even to gain ecstasy. But emotional or trance, you just let your mind get fascinated with something, and there you go. I've told you in the context when I explained, in my childhood days, I was very fascinated going to, the pujas of Lord Ayyappa. December month comes and I used to look forward. And as a kid, I used to just fascinated with that whole experience. And I used to, I never understood how, somebody in the gathering, invariably 2-3 people will get overwhelmed and get completely get that so-called divinely experience. I never understood. And it all makes sense now. Okay. Yes, sir. Rao Garu.
Jai Gurudev.
Namaskaram, sir.
So when I started my journey with the mantra, so one day I was sitting and I was like Hanuman, my body is growing. It went into it. The whole room is, is going to such a big, that time I'm feeling so energy, but the moment again it comes back as what happened? A lot of energy comes in the trance, but that is not, again goes back. When not only going back, and people, whatever the energy they thought, suddenly it comes to a stage where they are so weak and they fall down also. Whereas the ecstasy, the true spiritual, your continuous, it will not disconnect. That happiness, that will not disconnect. The conscious and awareness is there. There is always that whatever the energy is much more than this trance energy will be there, but they don't show up. They don't show it. That is that level is a bliss, whatever is called above all.
Correct.
That is
correct.
truly connected with the God. That is not ideal. It is not. It is like a different gunas and sektis. That is where we become truly a son of the God.
Yes, very true. In fact, taking a word from what you said, trance is a very tamasic experience, and ecstasy is a highly sattvic experience. And Gayatri Ma, realization is?
It's about this gunas.
Which is? What do you call that?
Turiya state.
Turiya is the state, but it is described through the gunas. How do you describe that state through the gunas?
Trance, sattvic.
Correct. When you transcend sattva, trans sattva is realization. Tamasic state is trance. Sattvic state is ecstasy. And transcending sattva is realization.
By the way, Guruji, my lifelong question was answered today. Every time I used to think, because from childhood we were told that the trance is never to be believed. My mother says all those are humbug, don't believe. But this ecstasy, when I started feeling a later stage of my life, I never used to understand what is that. I know it is not self-realization, but what is the feeling? So today I know it is just ecstasy, and Atman is beyond that.
So therefore, we will not say any more of Gayatri Ma. We bid adieu here, because her lifelong question is answered. So there's nothing more to be answered. Correct?
No, this question, I always had it in my mind.
Appa, thank God. That means there's still more something to learn, Ilya.
Yes.
Right. No, I'm glad. I didn't have it in mind to clarify, but it's just that when I got into the context, I just thought it is worth mentioning, because we have not spoken of it in any context in the study ever. And this clarity is essential. Okay, right. Okay, ma. Shantima, enna? I can see a lot of confusion. Ella clear, ah?
Yes, Guruji. Because for me, all the while, like I'm thinking like trance and exit, I don't know how to pronounce. It's the same meaning. Ecstasy. Okay. I thought it's the same.
Whatever you call it, never mind.
I thought it's the same. I have like a negative thought on these two. But I don't know where I got it from. But it's like I always have a negative thought on these two words. Actually, I thought that both are the same.
But I suppose the clarification, what we've explained, should clarify that perception you had. So you can be quite right to jot it down. Don't come to a conclusion, because you have to ponder on it. Jot it down that trance is a very negative state. Ecstasy is a positive experience, but not to be mistaken as spiritual perfection.
Okay.
That helps, isn't it? That you got that concept clearly across, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. That helps, isn't it?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. Great. So I'm glad we've brought this up. Let's move on. Badriji, all okay? Okay. No, the way you, I don't know whether it is, whether you are, I know you are in ecstasy, but
the sunlight coming from here.
Okay. But some credit I'll give you, don't worry. Apart from the sunlight. Okay. All right. All okay?
Yeah, I just wanted to share one thing though. If you,
please.
From the biography of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, you understand that people have observed him in all three states. In states of trance where people thought he was a madman, they would sometimes find him on a tree. Okay. And in states of ecstasy, and what is described in the biography as Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So I'm just quoting, I mean, I don't know anything about that. I'm just quoting what is written in the book. So it is possible that the same person in different states can experience all these things, and there's nothing good or evil, as you mentioned. There's nothing wrong with trance if it's a pure experience, if it's not for show. And the same person can experience all this. And it's three different levels of experience, probably.
Sir, you're talking of a book, a commentary describing the life of a person. It is an interpretation.
Right.
You are interpreting an interpretation of an experience of a man of realization. We are going into sheer guess, and I would not want to do that. I would question that commentator who wrote a biography of the great Ramakrishna by saying that he experienced trance, ecstasy, and realization. I would question on what basis can he say that? On what basis? Okay, he may have guessed that he has attained, he went through the experience of trance and ecstasy. On what basis you would say he's attained realization? If this commentator writes that Ramakrishna Paramahamsa attained realization, do you mean to say this commentator has attained moksha? Because only a man of realization knows who is realized and who is not. It is a very big pill to swallow.
So
I would not.
Yeah, so you are saying that the description of something like Nirvikalpa Samadhi is just something that the biographer is one of his disciples. Okay. So
It
yeah,
could be anybody.
right.
It could be,
Yeah.
in fact, I would be biased if it's a disciple.
Right. No,
Because
but I
he's
just
too
wanted
biased.
to share that,
So-
and it's good to hear your views on that. Okay.
No, I'm glad you clarified, Badriji, is because it is very difficult to gauge another person, much less a person who is a highly evolved state. We should not come to conclusions. So I would be very, very, in fact, in the scriptural studies, we are cautioned, don't read autobiographies of spiritual masters. Don't follow lifestyles of these great men. What you must be interested is in their teachings, not their lifestyles.
Right.
If that man sat under a tree or on a tree, that is his problem. It should not be your problem or my problem. Let's not make it our lifestyle because he did so.
Right.
We don't understand why they did it, but we're just going by what they do. Therefore, we are never told to do what great men do. Follow what they say.
Right.
We all will be safe. We all will be not wrong if we follow the teachings of the great Ramakrishna, but we all will be fundamentally wrong if we follow the lifestyle of Ramana Maharshi or the great Ramakrishna or Ramatirtha. You will be fundamentally wrong. You and I will not evolve if we follow a lifestyle of a guru. Never follow lifestyle. Only follow the teachings.
Right.
So I would actually say I have a strong objection to that statement of. You give a reference, not you don't own it, nor you believe in it, but you just made a statement. But I want to come very, very clear and very upright with it, because we need to be guided where not to go.
Right.
Sometimes we need to be told what not to do. And this is one of the things we've got to be very careful. And why are we told very clearly is because there's a weakness to get into lifestyles, autobiographies of Swamis. Autobiography of a yogi. Read how to become a yogi, not autobiography of a yogi. Read the Gita to become a yogi, not autobiography of it. I have nothing against it. I'm talking the principle.
Right.
So it's a weakness. It's because we all want to emulate them because they have a certain charm. There are certain celebrities. This is a weakness in every field, isn't it? The moment whom you consider celebrity, you want to do, what is the new trend the celebrity is doing? You want to follow the trend, isn't it?
No, the only reason why I mentioned this was not because I believe in it or anything. I just wanted to make the point that is it possible for the same person to experience all these, and is there a value judgment about because in the course of today's talk you once mentioned that there's nothing wrong with trance. Okay.
No, I didn't say that. That's, in fact, I want to take an objection to that. I did not say there's anything wrong with trance. In fact, I said trance is not a spiritual state. I said it's an emotional weakness. It is a mental indulgence, and Vedanta does not give a sanction to emotional indulgence, whether be it worldly indulgence or spiritual indulgence. Vedanta doesn't sanction it. So I've said when I summed up with Shantima, I said trance is negative. Just to clarify her perception, trance is negative, ecstasy is positive. So I did not say trance is acceptable.
No,
but I told Setuji when he said somebody who puts on an act, I said that they are very genuine when they do it. They're not hypocrites. I did say that. A person who experiences trance are not hypocrites. So we don't have to look at them suspiciously. We only have to understand them correctly. That it is an emotional, they have got carried away with a certain experience. So you can also be a part of that experience. As I said, from a young age, I was also a part of many such spiritual gatherings, but I was never carried away. There's someone out in the gathering gets carried away. They're not hypocritical. It is just that they're an emotional personality. Their emotions are more pronounced and they're far more influenced than the rest of them. But you can't
So
say
the-
they are
So the same
hypocritical.
person, no, what I'm trying to say is the same person in the course of his spiritual evolution can go through all this is what I'm trying to say. At one stage, yeah. It's
Even the
possible.
worst, sir, the Gita says the worst of sinners can attain realization.
Right.
The worst of sinners. And there's none amongst us here. So that assurance the scriptures give that you can be the lowest of tamasic person, you can attain the trans-sattvic state. So why are you doubting that possibility? Because it's your birthright. They say realization is your birthright. So you can achieve it. That's what the Shastras give us, that optimistic feeling. You just have to strive towards it. But would I want to put that into the great Ramakrishna's life and say he experienced trance, ecstasy, and nirvikalpa samadhi? I would think 10 times before I come to any such conclusion.
Okay.
I would not be sold by any such assumptions. It could be his own disciple, or whoever it be. It's only, sir, the very famous words, it takes a Milton to understand a Milton. And I am no one to sit in judgment over a person, even if I am acquainted with him, if I know him, I'm only gauging him from my limited intellect and mind, isn't it? I don't have access to his transcendental state. If he has attained transcendental experience, I have no access to. I can be over them and say, my guru is a realized soul. But remember, sir, no man of realization will ever say he's realized. If he or she is ever said and claimed to be realized, I would question it. I would take a step back from that whole experience, because you don't know, there's ulterior motive when you do that. No true man of realization will ever say that. So-called modern gurus are going about claiming themselves to be attained gurus, attained salvation. I'm not pitching in my ego here, but I'm saying the Shastras don't endorse that. So it is not what a person claims out of emotion or a certain state, but as a sadhak, how I should approach. I'm only projecting that approach of a sadhak to each of us. It's not how you hold your guru in your heart, but what we need to do as a student is follow the teachings, not the lifestyle of your guru. Thanks, Ji. Thank you very much. Okay. I think Haresh and Raviji want to say, I think let's take up Haresh first. Yes, Haresh, please.
Guruji, I have a very curious question. It's more out of my curiosity, and is not to make any judgments or any of this question. So please excuse me. It might be a controversial question. I'm very sorry about what trance and ecstasy define in this subject. But Guruji, I want to ask, sheer out of curiosity, the organization in the 1980s and 1990s, Sri Rajneesh Osho, he had a big following, and they kept talking about ecstasy all the time. In this specific context, just wanted to clarify whether this would be under trance or ecstasy, his organization of followers. Again, this is just a curiosity of question, no judgment.
I would not take up this question because I don't discuss personalities nor institutions.
Okay.
It is not right for us to take personalities and institutions. We are here learning philosophy, not to brand anyone out there. And who am I to pass a comment? I would be very, very mindful of passing a comment, because I have nothing within to. I don't come to the screen to share my opinions. You want my opinion? Connect with me independently. You want to know the truth? Come to the classroom. I speak facts in the classroom. I don't give my opinions. And I clearly differentiate between facts and opinions. And I don't influence my own thinking into this. I have, through the course of my journey, Harish, I have explained the concepts, not having totally understood what was explained, because I explained because I saw some truth in it, but I have not experienced it. Right now, I'm conveying the bliss of realization to you, but I have not experienced the bliss of realization. I'm conveying because I see some truth in it. It's not what I feel, but I know that I have not attained moksha. I know there is a way to go for me to experience realization, but that doesn't mean I don't believe in it. It's not my personal thing. It's the truth that has been laid out. So I'm giving out because it's the truth, not because I have personally experienced it. So it is not my personal thing I bring in. It's because it has to be spoken. So, and it became a truth thereafter because I just kept speaking the truth. And when I keep saying the word I'm only talking about, again, it's not to be construed egoistically, but it's to stick to facts of life. So, and what others do, it's their business. I would not bring it in the context of any classroom, but I can connect with you, you can connect with me, and I can clarify that. Okay, G?
Thank you, Guruji. Thank you.
Yes, yeah. Yes, Hariji, I think I'll take up Hariji before I get to, I think Hariji had raised earlier as well. Yes. Yes, sir.
Hari Om. Vedanta clearly says that a self-realized soul is like a baby or a madman. So a baby or a madman, you cannot say whether he is in trance or in ecstasy. These are all things which they feel within themselves. And I cannot look at somebody and proclaim that he is in trance or he is in a state of madness. People who write about them based on their own, it is not what the other man is. It is only my feeling. I look at somebody and say that he is in trance or he is in a state of madness. These are all words with which they are trying to express their own feelings. It is not, it cannot be interpreted as the state of that man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you've reiterated what was said, but Badriji, not to be misconstrued that we are taking an offense to or taking an objection to what you said. I'm glad you brought that out so that that concept was highlighted. I know it is not, there's no pun on what you have said. It's not you, it's just the concept that needs to be clarified. I know you're taking in the right spirit. And thanks, Hariji. Okay, let me get to Raviji. Yes, Dr. Ravi, please go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yeah, Ken, sorry. I was following the whole conversation just now. The thing that I want to emphasize is actually most of the teachings in various places, they don't emphasize what you had mentioned, especially through our Vedanta teachings, which is follow the teachings and imbibe the teachings inside you and follow. But what they say is they don't mention that. So most of them blindly in any of the teachings, they are good. Many of them are good. But the people in general follow the lifestyle or the personality of the guru that they follow. So that, or maybe they either emulate or criticize. So that's where the problem happens. But in our Vedanta teaching through you, actually, I see that you always emphasize that teachings are more important than the following of the guru. I mean, I've seen this personally. I don't want to comment anything because many of them asked and quoted a few other teachings, but it is not the problem with the teacher. It's actually many of the teachers do say the right thing. For example, like Sadhguru, Mahatriya, everybody says the right things. But what people do in their section of belief and followers, they follow the guru. I mean, they don't take the teachings. They just indulge into their lifestyles and just see. The moment they find something wrong with their lifestyle, they quit from there and then start looking for other people. But this is where our thing shines very well, because each and every guru is like another human being. So he also got his own whims and fancies and everything in his own lifestyle and everything. So most important is the teachings to follow, to be followed. And that is what all the other gurus also want their followers to follow, but they fail to communicate that. That is what I wanted to say. And the early part of the discussion, which you mentioned about the ecstasy and this thing, it actually gave a different light into it. Because in my practice, I see ecstasy means people coming in with all the ecstasy. I always felt it was wrong.
Doctor, sorry, we just lost you briefly. Could you repeat? You often see, you said something.
I often see ecstasy cases as ecstasy pills that people swallow in the pubs and things, and they come to us. So to me, the ecstasy is a different understanding what it was explained now. But I do agree with what is trance. Trance is a mentally imbalanced state, whether it happens during Thaipusam in Palani or in Malaysia also. So the thing is, a lot of people go through this trance and they are not stable, actually. That's the problem. But what you explained about ecstasy, without any external influence, that means they are not under any alcohol or any under drugs or anything, or ecstasy pills, is what you explained. So I think I give a lot of credit to what you said. So that's what I wanted to comment, Guruji.
Thank you, Doctor. Thanks, you clarified, because I am not under any influence when I spoke of ecstasy. Only influence is I had uncontaminated water. That's all I had. So, and if doctor has given you the credit, what more you want? This is the utmost certification you can ask for, isn't it? Enna Balaji, correct? Dr. Raviye Kurtanga, where enna venu ipo? Where onnu venda?
You already removed it. I think you are enlightened, sir.
Yes, sir. Now I can go about telling. Now I'm going to say I'm enlightened now. Right. Okay. Yes, Lakshmi Ma. Yes, your picture is little dark, and maybe you need to improve your lighting if you can. Never mind. I could notice you wanting to say something. Yes, go ahead, please, Ma.
No, I just wanted to sum this up with the expression you always say, only those who wake up will know who is sleeping. Right?
Absolutely.
Only if you wake up, you'll know who is sleeping. So until we self-realize, we don't know who is self-realized. It's
Correct.
just a judgment.
Yes. And in fact, it is only men of realization know each other. That's why I said it takes a Milton to understand a Milton. You know, it takes an artist to understand art. It takes a musician to understand music. It takes a poet to understand poetry. It takes a philosopher to understand philosopher. It takes a man of realization to understand who he is and who isn't. And then rest is left to them to communicate. Why are we butting in between? Okay. I think a very critical point was communicated, and I wanted to connect with as many of you all to ensure you all understand this difference. Even though the terms used are familiar, we use the word the mind, we use the integration of the head and heart, and how the real spiritual experience transcends the head and heart. Going back to the mantra 6, we said it is not an object of emotion, it is not an objective experience, but it's a subjective becoming. So it's something internal, right? So, and that's what the guru in the first mantra, he says, therefore, that which is to be known, I think, is still to be ascertained by you. Therefore, the guru is saying Brahman is not reached yet. So it's just a caution. And interestingly, the next mantra, the student actually assures the teacher that he's actually attained realization It is not a mere objective. It's not mere ecstasy. My Guru, I've actually experienced it.